Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Rebels Compass. It's Sunday morning. I hope you all had a fantastic Easter weekend. We took the weekend off from doing any recordings, but I'm here this morning with Karen Stillman. I'm very excited for her to be here to share some of the stuff that she is actually teaching and sharing through her past experiences and bringing empowerment to women and to couples with information on infertility and various other subjects that we're going to probably cover. So good morning, Karen.
Morning, Karen.
It's a double act.
Karen squared today.
There you go.
Wonderful.
This is great. So Karen, I've met you a few times.
Yes.
So can you tell us and share with us your past experiences that have brought you to the space that you're in today, sharing the information that you're sharing?
I would love to. Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to be here with you today. It's a pleasure to share this information. I myself am fully trained and practiced as an obstetrician gynecologist for 12 years and love that work, love dealing with those clients, those patients, serving them. That's what I truly loved. I, however, had my own health-related issues.
Mm-hmm.
Just before I had closed my practice. So in 2014, I closed my practice. I had major back pain and started having thyroid problems and wasn't able to find a simple fix with my medical colleagues and realized that what I need to do is take some time for me. So in the process of doing that, I looked at alternative modalities. And I had gone on a Vipassana, 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Okay, yes.
And found great self-enlightenment in all that. Also to the point that on day 6, I had no back pain.
Okay.
And I was having back pain such that I was taking prescription medications that would make me drowsy, so I couldn't take them the nights I was on call. Taking the non-drowsy medication by prescription the nights I was on call. And at that day 6 of that retreat, I could bend over and move, and like I had no restrictions in my body. It was a real eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
And following that, with the thyroid, trying to get that settled, I realized again, I decided that it was time to take time for me. So after I closed my practice, I looked into some other modalities. I met you through another friend, Catherine Green, and had used some oils to help, and my stepmom had come up to help me close up my office with my dad and pack things away and get things organized, and she had done some Reiki and just had finished her Reiki level 1 and came up and said, Karen, let me just try this on you. Lie down on the bed and let's see what we can do. And that morning I hadn't taken any pain medication, and within 30 minutes, with feeling this tingling all over my body, I realized that there was the pain was just seeping away. It was just melting out of my body. It was wonderful. So I myself turned to these other modalities, working more with some of the oils, had done my Reiki master training. I had taken additional training down in Atlanta, Georgia called Sacred Childbirth with Reiki training.
Okay.
Corey Nielsen is a blessing. It's been nothing but a pleasure to receive the benefits and the gifts from that training, as well as being able to share that with some other women. And I had been continuing on with trying to improve my well-being, and it was just a slow process. 12 years of practice with 7 years of training, and gotten married during the process of my residency. Had 2 babies, so I had my own life experiences, my personal case studies with that, and had gotten a divorce by the time I was done.
Yeah.
So a lot of life events through all that stuff, and with the hours. I loved being in a small town when I worked because I was home on call. So I had more breakfasts and more suppers and put my kids to bed more than if I was in a big center. But that required more nights available on call, and that took its toll. So recovering my health wasn't a fast process. But as I was making the progress, I was got to the point where I felt I was a little stuck with all these modalities, that there was something else that I needed. I had done a couple more Vipassanas. I had went to India.
Okay.
And did my yoga teacher training there, a 5-week immersion. So it's not just with the asana, the postures, and the prana, learning all the breath techniques. You're immersed in a culture where Ayurveda is the way of life, and
Yes.
yoga is the way of life. It's not an exercise routine only on the mat. It is a way of life, and it was beautiful. I followed that with some holidaying in Italy and a third Vipassana that I had done. And I walked a Camino.
And that is?
A Camino de Santiago de Compostela. It was 5 weeks. I was 35 days walking from the south of France at the base of the Pyrenees.
Wow.
Cross into Spain and walked along the northern aspect, not on the coast, but on the northern aspect, the Camino Way. It's there's a couple of books, a couple of popular movies, and ended up in Santiago. It's used to be a pilgrimage. The route I took was St. James Way,
Okay.
and it was just walking on my own. My only job was to get up and walk to my next destination. Now, I didn't do the typical pilgrim carrying everything on my back. I had that back pain, so I had been leery of what to do. So I did a little posh Camino, but I did what would work for me. So I had the taxi carry my big pack because I had been gone for 2.5 more months before that.
Yeah.
And but I did carry about 5 kilos on my back. My food, spare shoes, my first aid kit. I didn't know what I would need, water, how frequently I'd be able to stop. But it was a learning process. It was very reflective process. And it's an up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down process. It's not flat. So I'd come back and realized I thought at the pinnacle of how great my health would be. And shifting back, realizing that the caveats of Western society, living back home in the town where I had been working and had the stressors, the mental space got a little bit eroded again, and I started some personal coaching. And at that point, that's where on my last Vipassana retreat that I realized that that's where and what I was doing before served a lot of my clients best. I had the knowledge, the training, the expertise in medical information and techniques and knowing about treatment modalities and therapies, surgeries, as well as medications. And what helped many of my clients was not those specific aspects of my medical training, but the fact that I would sit in my office, not limiting to 1 or 2 problems, doing my best to stay on a schedule, but it's not looking at the time clock. You know, you have your 1 or 2 problems, 7 minutes, and you're out the door. Office practice. It was a heart-centered practice, and it was hard because I was square peg in a round hole. How I was trying to work with that.
Yeah.
And when I had done my personal coaching, and then the light bulb went off and went away and done some training, came back and realized this is how I can do what works with me, how I can serve the women, the couples, the people with health-related problems that are just not easily fixed. And I love it. I love how I've been able to niche the alternative with my knowledge. And it's just been a blessing to have that shift, become aware, because I'd been asking for a few years when it felt like a struggle with work and getting up and what was going on. And it just, having a religious background, raised Catholic, I had great support from my church community and always had great support from that. But I was always asking, not specifically people, but just, there must be something else, give me a sign. And what I realized was I wasn't realizing the signs that I was being offered. I was waiting for the sign that I was specifically had in mind. And that's not how it works.
No, that's not always how it works, for sure. I know I've had conversations with friends of mine that have asked for a sign, and you see, when you look back, you see all these different signs pointing you in a direction, but the one that they thought they should have didn't show up, but there was lots more signs that showed up beforehand.
Absolutely.
And I've done those silent retreats. I've done, the longest one I've done is 3 days.
Yes.
And the first day I found the hardest of unplugging from everything and listening to that internal voice and being present for that
Yes.
internal voice. So all of that brought you to expand on all the knowledge that you have,
Yes.
and actually create a space where women, couples can come in and be heard.
Yes.
Because I know from my own personal experience going to see a doctor, you're not heard. That's always been, like you say, you've got 7 allotted minutes. They've got to get so many people in, and my personal belief is they hear the key words, trigger words, and work on that, but don't actually hear what's being said. So to have someone like you with your background and your knowledge and your experience to be present and hear what's being said is massive.
I think so. It makes a difference when a person is being heard as to what concerns them. Not that you're going to wallow in your story in any great depth, but it's for me it's a different cue word that I will hear that will help reveal to them. Say, okay, let's pause here for a moment. Don't rattle on with the race of the story. We don't need to go more. We can, but listen to this word and listen to the feeling tone that you have here, and let's just take that mindfulness in the story at whatever point where I hear that, where that catches, where that electricity is that is pulling them to the less, that is not expansive for them, rather than the other word and rushing them out the door. And not that medicine hasn't done wonderful things. I mean, where would we be without penicillin?
Oh, absolutely.
Where would we be without CPR? Where would we be without, we do have the in vitro fertilization. There's so many benefits. But there is a 25 to 40% unexplained fertility rate where everything seems to be perfect in his and her bodies.
Yes.
So what's not working to come together? There's tests that are not going to tell you everything.
Yes.
And my own thyroid, and whether it is my thyroid struggle, I will accept my label. I have a diagnosis, but I don't have to accept the prognosis.
Yes.
And all the details that surround that. And I'm luckily enough, being empowered enough and having knowledge of other resources so that I've been looking into other things and finding ways and means of looking at other tests and things that are not necessarily terribly expensive. I've had a live blood analysis done 3 times now and seen the differences of different times of year and what happens to be the specifics going on, and having a great test to a not so great test and realizing, well, that was just after we got married and it was a crazy time and I don't think I was exercising the same. I know I wasn't exercising the same.
Yeah.
And just the and the rat race and go and not hydrating well, and it just puts into perspective on the blood smear that you see. It's living, cells are moving. You see it on the microscope on the screen, and you can see you saw them take the blood out of your finger, and you see that you're present for that physically, as well as you can get mindfully present into that, because it's not just 100 abbreviations with a slew of 500 numbers, which really is not as meaningful.
It doesn't
to
mean
you.
anything to
So it brings back
yeah.
to the meaning and the wholeness of you and all those gifts that are within you, so that you can be present and see the one little thing that makes that big shift. Because really, it usually is something that you're just, everybody glossed over, or you just didn't think twice about, that really, when you take a few minutes to reflect on it, it can lead you in a step into a new direction. Like when you have a cruise liner or an ocean liner or a big battleship, it takes several miles for it to actually physically change the course when you, in your electronics, adjust the course by 1 degree.
Yes.
So many miles later, you're in a different destination, and that gets you to where you would love to be. And that's what I love, how I can shift that for women.
That is a fantastic analogy of that internal life process of change your course by 1 degree.
One little thing.
One little change. That actually gives me chills right through my body, actually. It's that chill of recognition,
Yes.
that. So by making those sometimes micro changes,
Yes.
changes the whole outcome.
Yes.
And not buying into, as you mentioned, the diagnoses or the written prognosis
Yes.
of what may or may not happen.
Yes.
You know within yourself that something's different.
Yes.
And you are the one that can help guide them to recognizing that and delving deeper within themselves to maybe make those shifts so
Yes.
that they get on the right course,
Yep.
making those micro changes.
Well, we are humans.
Yes.
And I love the fact that, and I like to call us humans, not human beings, because we're actually amazing, beautiful, perfect spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm.
And we're having our now present finite human experience.
Yeah.
So here I am right now, Karen Stillman, in the land of space and time with Karen Jones today. But our spiritual beings have probably intertwined before, because when I first met you, I felt the connection.
Yes.
The link friend I had met, as soon as I met her, I felt a deep connection.
Mm-hmm.
And this doesn't happen haphazardly.
No.
There's that energy that cannot be created or destroyed has been ever present, and we just transmute it. We transform it. We change.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm now in this human body, having this experience, and I've gleaned from my upbringing, and not that my parents were well-meaning, but they only had so many skills, and society only has so many skills, and my religious background only has so much skill to provide me. But I've put that together. I did academic training, and that gave me again another skill set. But it up-leveled for me dramatically when I went to India and did yoga teacher training. And the basis for going there was that I had the ability to take 5 weeks condensed. Recommendation of a girlfriend who knew me well from being from a 10-year friendship, and knowing that would, just from what we knew of each other, that would make a difference with the Ayurvedic aspect of it. And knowing that being so heart-centered, and not that physicians aren't heart-centered, they're busy. They are very well-meaning people, but a lot of people are limiting themselves to the conditions and the circumstances. And I very well experienced in that. That's why I had the back pain and maybe the health-related issues. But I felt there was something more, and I'd been asking a long time for, there's got to be something else. There must be something more, and what is it? And when I went to India, it really up-leveled that for me, learning more about that culture. Not that I wasn't aware of some of their practices, but that more deeply rooted Ayurvedic way of life and medicine, that the medical aspect of their culture is 5,000, 6,000 years old. There's more levels to it. They don't just look at the physical body. And if you start to delve into energy work with chakras or meridians or energy bodies and those kinds of things, that's where some of these other modalities, which unfortunately aren't covered by our healthcare. We do have a great healthcare for wonderful system, but there are limitations with that. It's this opened my eyes to, I have this great resource that I've not only trained in and have great knowledge in, that I have practical experience in. And I've now linked that with my other beliefs. I've changed a couple of my beliefs. I knew that they just didn't fit, but I adopted what I grew up with, and like most of us, and sometimes they're quite limiting. And when I realized that there was so much more and I could do more, I realized that I'm, I had been a long time, especially with my divorce, looking at why things happened to me. Instead of saying, these happened with me, not to me, and what am I going to learn from them? Because there's a gift in them.
Yes.
And if I can't claim a gift, put a pin in it, knowing there's something in there, because friends have said, and a couple of people at the workshops, well, you can't tell me that war is a gift. Well, there's got to be something. There, individually, globally, maybe you can't put your finger on it right now, but if you put out to hold the space, there's a gift in that, and I will come back to that when I'm ready. There's a time for that, and I just don't have that right now. That still opens up from the universe all that energy, all those resources, whether it's people, things, time, tools, whatever that can be, whatever your resources are, it opens all that up. And I've realized that my link for me was that I have the knowledge, the interest, the desire. I have a burning desire to serve people. True to my heart is women's wellness. I'll bypass the word health, because to me now that's more tied with medicine. So your wellness and your well-being, your health is part of your well-being, but so are your relationships, and how you feel about your vocation, and how you feel about what you have for your time freedom and your money freedom, and how that flows, and whether or not you're forcing to get to these and work with these, or are you allowing it, permitting it, inviting and welcoming it. So when you change, I just feel even bigger and broader, and when I use the different terms, and linking that so that women and couples can see the difference, that they don't need to struggle. That yes, up until now it may have been a struggle, and what can I do to help you shift that?
Well, when you know more, you can do more. When
That's
you're
right.
shown a different way, you have a choice then of whether you make those micro changes and set a different course, or you continue on the same path that you were previously on. So the infertility that you support and help people to find the balance within them, so that isn't a block anymore, an emotional block anymore. Once the medical profession has determined that there is no medical condition, not that that can't be reversed, because I do believe it can. But
I agree with that. We'll get into that later.
We'll get into that later, but I believe that that can be changed, because I don't buy into a lot of their diagnoses and printed reasons for things. So if there was a couple that currently are going through that experience of wanting to start a family, and they have struggled up until this point, when they come and see you, can you walk us through some of that?
Love to.
What you offer and guide through your experience?
Well, what I do offer, initially I offer some general workshops so people can get some information. My website's presently under construction, because I had worked mostly with some of that energy work with the Reiki and those things. So I'm shifting now to have more of the life coaching, transformational life coaching information available on the website. But what I do at the workshop is give them some information, and I offer a complimentary 1-hour strategy session, because it's imperative for them to know that the information that they're sharing with me, that they have that comfort level with me, so that we can build upon that. Because if you're not comfortable, it goes nowhere. I felt that in my own personal experience with different encounters personally, and it was, my son has Asperger's and ADHD, and that was very apparent to me at some appointments, that he would blow through, not work with, not be in sync, not focus with, and you say, of course he can't, because he has Asperger's and ADHD. At the appointments, we had struggled initially with him, and he had met one person in the process that it transformed him when he met her. He the light in his face,
he was present,
and his eyes, the shift that happened in that one appointment made a difference that was paramount. So it's terribly important, I know, that you're working with someone that you have that comfort level with, because then when you're calm, you're comfortable, you're calm. You can be more present and allow that stuff and invite those things to work for you. So I offer a 1-hour session. I do gather their information about what struggles they've had up till now. And it's not only, though, with their fertility challenges, because that spills over into their relationship. It spills over into their vocation, what they do with their time and talents, and what are they doing with their time and money freedom, because most of them feel very constricted in all the domains. So is there something that you can open up in one of the other domains in the process, or just shine a light of awareness, so then that they can be mindful of that, and then that can shift again where they're going. And what I love about what I do is I find a lot of couples are stuck with I've got a diagnosis and I'm left with this, and they're doing all the things, and all I can do is wait. And waiting is a very big struggle for a lot of people, because they can't take that time to be mindful and work with themselves. And that's a prime opportunity for me to be able to work with them and use the energy that they previously have focused on their struggle
Yes.
and on their challenges, move it through a system so that that energy transforms and gives them results.
Mm-hmm.
So we just transfer that energy through a system. And I love the fact that when they're aware of these things, it makes such a big change. The one thing that's really important and eye-opening to a lot of couples is they have their plan is waiting for that day when they go in and start their IVF, or they actually get in because they're in the waiting time lane to get their initial appointment with the fertility clinic because of age and other factors. They may be on a longer wait time, and they're still, they just put, okay, I'm closing off all that, I'm putting it in a box, and that's okay because you can plant seeds and leave it and not dwell on it.
Yeah.
But they've shifted, and they're letting, once that lid comes off that box, is the powers with that appointment and that person or that facility and that process. And what I like to point out to them is that you haven't imagined your endpoint. You've sort of seen that you want this, and you've seen the struggle, and you look up all the things about maybe what your diagnosis is while you're waiting for treatment. Have you thought about where are you with? Do you see yourself holding that baby a year or two from now? Like you've had your success, and couples will break down and cry because they've closed themselves off to that,
just in case,
because of the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And what I hold their hand, support them with, is vision that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have your end goal clearly defined with little details or a lot of details, how are you going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
So my another water boat analogy is a sailor cannot go anywhere despite whatever winds comes his way if he does not have his destination planned out. He will not know how to use that wind, that energy.
That navigation system, yeah.
So you need to know what your endpoint is, and the endpoint, not this endpoint with the baby. And if that doesn't work, well, right now we've already got on to the adoption list in Canada because I want a white newborn, or going out of country and having their fingers in 4 pots and looking at all the things that they can do. The universe won't know what to give you because you're working
your power too thin.
You are spreading yourself too thin. So laser focus. So we focus on what it is you would truly love. Imagine it so that you can lean into it, feel it, encompass it. What does that energy feel like? Okay, so we know our endpoint. Ground that.
Yeah, I actually had a friend when I lived back in the UK, and she struggled for a while to get pregnant, and she ended up going to see someone for past life. So her experience was she had gotten pregnant several times, and each time she got pregnant, she miscarried. So usually within the first few weeks, she'd miscarried. And she hadn't gone through any of the IV stuff, but it was a thought. But it was through another friend that said, well, why don't you do a past life? Because clearly there's something holding you back. And she didn't really believe in it. It wasn't something that she really wanted to do. But she did, just to pacify the friend, I believe. Anyway, when she went for this past life experience, she found within that past life experience what came up for her was war. That gives me chills again.
Big struggle.
She was terrified of the way the world presents itself through her reality right now. The way the world that presents itself was a terrible world. I don't want to raise a child in a world. There's going to be another world war. I don't want to go there. But everything within her being wanted to have a child. But the cellular body, everything that creates that child was forming the space of fear, and it's not safe for me to have a child because there's going to be another world war.
Exactly.
When she did this process, she went through a few things, and she did this process. She did the same thing, broke down, because she didn't know how deep this feeling was within her it might have been a passing comment, oh, the world's a disaster, or the world's this, or the world's this, but she never really recognized what the truth was inside of every single cell in her being.
Yes.
She finally did the work that she needed to do, and it must have been 18 months later, she got pregnant.
Exactly.
She carried the baby term, and then exactly 1 year to the day, she had another child. So she had what we call in England Irish twins.
Irish twins, love them.
So that's what happened to her. She had a boy and a girl.
Yep.
And then after that, it was like, that's it. I'm getting my tubes tied. I'm done. Whatever the block was, it's cleared now.
Absolutely.
But for her, it was everything about what she believed about the world to be.
Yes. And that's what we do. So her, as you said, her cellular body had the memories, how recent or distant they were.
Mm-hmm.
That energy from her spiritual being, couldn't be destroyed. So when she came into being this time on this human experience on this earth at this time, she carried that with her. And you may not be aware of some of where your values and belief systems come from. They are deep.
Yes.
And that work can make a great difference to bring it to the surface. So some people need an additional modality to help them realize that. People who are interested in realizing that there may be a conflict, I can say, I would love to have a baby, but if I go out and worry about, my diagnosis or what you had mentioned, they're in conflict.
Yeah.
So the universe can't provide that to you. One will overtake the other.
Mm-hmm.
And the constriction for that heavier frequency is big. It pulls you to that not moving and being in light and living in the light.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding the truth within. So the big thing is finding, as you had mentioned, that truth, that power. So which one really is that burning desire that you can raise children knowledgeably, responsibly, and I can still love them. And I'm going to do that in a world where there are challenges, but my love, my burning desire is still with having that child and being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then doing the work, the mindfulness work, the spiritual work, to release that other. Because our cells are always turning over.
Yes.
Not all of our cells, and some cells turn over quicker than others.
Mm-hmm.
But over time are so many trillion cells that we have in our body, which are mostly water, when you're thinking of us in what state we are in. But we are all energy, and really, if you look from quantum physics-wise, we are 99% space,
Yeah.
although I can't pass my finger through you.
Yes.
So those are our perceptions. And again, our perceptions with our imagination, working with our 6 mental faculties. So imagining what your endpoint is,
Mm-hmm.
using your intuition to lean into what will work and not, and what perceptions do I have that are holding my back, using my memory in the past to become aware of those things, using my memory in the future and holding on to that energy of holding that beautiful now 2-year-old on my lap, because my paradigms, my limiting beliefs won't let me get to being pregnant and having the baby. There's so many walls come up, but I can picture 3 years out and holding a 1.5 or 2-year-old and running through the park, and me and my husband, when you swing the child with the arms, 1, 2, 3, whee! And it's just, you hear that feeling and you're holding that and you just sense that, and you can vocalize and hear that. You can smell the fresh cut grass when you're there and hear the giggles of the other kids in the park when you're doing that. When you can ground with your senses,
Mm-hmm.
that picture, that vision of your life, then you can build and come from that. What I love about that is we don't reach for our dreams. We don't get to our dreams. We don't get to that vision.
Mm-hmm.
We come from it. So we need to know what that is, and we need to ground that.
Yeah.
And that's how moving women and couples through that block of fingers and trying to sort out all the ifs, ands, or buts. And that goes in a box until I get to the appointment, and that's whatever until I can have my treatment. You're passing all your power away. So whether they can help you or not,
Yeah.
you may need to do the work, because IVF doesn't get 100% of people pregnant.
Mm-hmm. I love that expression, by the way, that you just used. We don't get to our end point. We bring that end point to us.
We bring it to us.
So you have to see, sense, know, feel,
Exactly.
experience within every single cell of your being that end point and bring that end point to you. So every micro change that you make brings you closer to that destination.
Yes. So as you start with a body that's stuck and constricted and worried with fear and challenge and struggle, you know then where you are. As your cells change and you work and come from that, you have more cells that have that. And you have more cells that have that. And as you're working with that and asking up-leveled questions, highly calibrated questions, because quality of our life is determined by the quality of our thinking. So as I'm thinking of that positive, I'm going to move more quickly in the direction of that. More resources are going to open up. Something's going to happen. Out of the blue, something happens out of the blue. You planted a seed, you move your energy, and something opens up available to you, and you hear something or you find out something else, and it just makes 1 degree shift.
Yeah, that actually happened to a family member of mine who for a long time wanted a family. She was given a diagnosis that the eggs were similar to frozen peas, basically. Nothing was going to penetrate. And when she was ready to go for the fertility treatment, did a pregnancy test prior, which is part of their protocol, I believe, and found out she was pregnant.
Exactly.
So it's like, well, how did that happen? If you were told this diagnosis, then...
Absolutely. You can have a diagnosis, but not let the diagnosis have you.
Yes, I love that.
There are so many people where you'll see there's lots of books and literature, the placebo effect, mind over medicine. I could rattle off probably another dozen books. If you don't know your own personal experience through friends or family members or acquaintances, you may have heard of somebody else telling a story. I've had this diagnosis. I had cancer. I had so many, months to live. And then months down the road, a couple years down the road, and you see that person and they're thriving. What's going on? Well, I cured myself. No, the doctor said I was misdiagnosed.
Yeah. Oh, the pills worked.
Well, there's what was your burning desire?
Yeah.
To, yes, have this treatment work for me, or yes, I may have this label, and in general, what can I do for me? And because so many of your cells shift and divide rapidly, less rapidly, whatever positive energy you bring into those cells, if the cells have the structure when it's a safety regulation, so when they divide, if they divide abnormally and you can't repair that, and that cancer happens, for example, or that condition, but it's stated that we probably have on average 5 to 7 cancers develop in our lifetime. It's just our repair mechanisms for ourselves, that safety net works.
Yes.
And when it doesn't, because of other environmental factors, diet, lack of exercise, or other environmental factors, make it not so, can you not shift it to make it so?
Yes.
If my car doesn't drive and I don't put gas in it and spark plugs have problems, and I'm not saying I'm an expert on cars because no way am I, but you change that, you put in gas, and then you realize, and you have your destination because you desire it. You desire to drive your car to that destination. I am going to make this work. I'm going to do the bits and pieces and think about, oh, well, those 2 things, now there must be something else. What else can I do? Well, you're going to take it to a garage. Can you afford it? Can you not? Do you know someone who could come look at it in your driveway and tinker at it? Is there something else? There's a variety of different things, but if you're not open to it, if you're not thinking about it, you won't see it.
Yeah.
And I learned an expression in medical training, that if you're not thinking of it, you won't diagnose it. That was commonly used for diagnosing ectopic pregnancy when we came in obstetrics and gynecology training specifically. If you don't think about that particular diagnosis when every woman comes into your office, unless they're postmenopausal and quite far, you are going to miss a life-threatening condition for that woman. So it has to be in your mind.
Okay.
So you have to think about it. So let's shift that to, do you have that burning desire for that baby? Or is it just, if it works out, that's okay. And if it doesn't, I'm happy with where I am. And I am glad that you would be content with where you are, but you have verbalized you want more. Why wouldn't you work hard to do that? Yes, you could be content, but if you really, make a decision, and until you decide, if you are hesitant about what you're deciding for, truly where you would love to move your life towards the next year or 2, the universe is not going to provide it. Even if you get an appointment into the clinic, even if you're one of the few meet all the hoops, jump through the hoops, and you're the successful candidate to receive Ontario's OHIP's covered IVF, that's not a guarantee you're going to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're still so content with the other, that, what happens, happens. And for a few, then they will still have success.
Yes.
There's enough seeds planted. But for many more, there's not.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be shifted, same with the recurrent pregnancy.
Yeah.
There's a large caveat of women that have no explainable reason. Those ones should be the easiest to shift.
Yes.
Work with your values, your beliefs, the limiting things. Know there's fear. Take fear by the hand. Walk with it to your destination. Don't let it lead you.
Yes.
Because it may lead you astray. Put it in the back seat and drive with it, knowing it's there. It's a friend, but you don't have to let that friend take over.
Yeah.
It's not to lead you.
Yeah. Well, as I've mentioned in previous videos, there's only two frequencies, love and fear.
Yes.
And you can't be in both of them at the same time.
That's right.
So, but you can recognize that the fear is
Yes.
there.
Yes.
And like you say, be in control of that. So you're
Yes.
back in your own driving seat,
Exactly.
driving to your destination because
Yes.
you are in control of the choices that you make and what you see.
Every morning when you wake up, be grateful that you woke up, because not
Mhm.
everybody woke up and could breathe today, and that it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to be happy.
Yeah.
And if you're not making that choice and you're letting the circumstances and conditions of life dictate that to you, I will be happy when I have that partner. I will be happy when I have that baby. I will be happy when I have my dream job. You're never going to be happy.
No.
You have to make that choice.
Yeah.
You have to make that choice. And you have that power within you to choose that.
Mm-hmm.
And just people don't recognize that. And that's a product of a multifaceted world that we live in. And we know from quantum physics, entropy, we all, you have so much chaos before you have some organization.
Yes.
And, but if you stay in that chaos, you're not going to get to that organized endpoint. You have to have a burning desire for that. You have to truly, truly, not just want it,
Feel
burning desire for that. That's just, because if I live in hoping, liking, and wanting, they're emotional feelings. Love is as well, but it's a higher frequency. Like you said, it's, and love and gratitude are on the frequency of abundance. So that there's an ever present universe to give you not just a piece of any pie. You can have all the pies you want. You have to decide that's what you want. And be specific about it, because it's just like, well, I'd love to have pie. Well, you may get blueberry, pecan, and butterscotch, and really, I want a cherry pie. But I didn't say cherry pie. So you need to let the universe know specifically, as specific as you can. And if you can't lean into it, just if it's a baby that's 2 years old, that you're in the park and feeling that, you're not sure if it's a boy or a girl, but it's healthy giggling,
you can feel
that's enough
else.
specifics to have that lovely vibration to uplift you, so you don't have to feel that struggle. Know that there may be, challenging times ahead. Be definitive. There are challenging times ahead. It's not if they're going to happen, it's when they're going to happen.
Yeah.
But knowing that you have the skills, they're all within you. That point of power is right in with you. You have that in your heart, in your solar plexus. You can have that link to the universe through your crown. Breathe into it, because when you don't breathe well, your body doesn't breathe well. And when we feel hunched over and do all that, well, for women, you are constricting, especially if you're seated, at the root and at your sacral chakra. That's all squished. You need to be expansive and to relax and breathe and to move. I mean, many people don't realize that. I do an analogy. I've done this a lot in the office.
I love analogies.
My body is the uterus. So, my feet, if they're standing still on the ground, they're stuck. And here are my arms are my tubes. The fimbriae are on my fingers, and the ovaries are just on either side. Your ovary releases an egg, and the tube captures that.
Yeah.
And it comes down with the hairs inside the tube. That's where the fertilization happens, and it implants into a beautiful, lush uterine lining. So there's all sorts of different pieces along the way that can impair that. And still, there's medical tests not yet available to discern that. So that's where unexplained infertility happens. And knowing that, for example, a lot of conditions are also related to not just infertility. When you're stressed, when you have fear and doubt and worry, those low struggle energies, you secrete a low amount of acid in your body.
Okay, yes.
In a strong yet fragile, we are amazing people. You say, "Oh, careful, the baby's fragile, but the baby's strong. But the baby's fragile, but the baby's strong." Your fallopian tubes are the same. Those delicate hairs in there that move the egg down to the uterus and that help move the sperm come up. 2 half cells, not even a full cell, 2 half cells doing all sorts of work, need those things to work properly so that they meet.
Yeah.
So if you're stressed all the time and worried all the time, those hairs aren't going to move well to propel them. There's a finite time. That egg has a finite time to be fertilized. The sperm lasts a little bit longer, lucky dudes or dudettes. But yeah, there's with the science of knowing all that, you don't have to be so science medical oriented to be a great transformational life coach. But I just feel I have this link. I have this gift. I've been blessed with such knowledge that for the people who need that knowledge.
Yes.
Because in North American societies, a lot of Western societies, we believe that we need to have randomized control trials and evidence-based to prove this.
Mm-hmm.
So we know and see, and you have to be able to touch that. And that's great. I hear now with the yoga world, because I've done the yoga teacher training and teach some classes still, that it's great how science and medicine has proven all this stuff about yoga that we've believed for so long. Okay, the yogi way of life has been 6,000 years around. So now we see it's proving stuff. So how about let's look at all the other stuff that's
Yes.
worked with and that I could bring into my life that, no, we don't all have to, transform and become Hindu and live totally an Ayurvedic way of life. But there's principles and pieces that we can bring into our life because I have choice to do that.
Yeah.
And up-level myself to that more so I can be more, do more, have more, create more, share more.
Mm-hmm.
I can be that more that I long to be because now I have the burning desire and I have access to those resources.
Okay. So when someone comes in for the hour-long consultation,
Yes,
and you find out their history, what they've done so far, at which point they're at, whether they're considering going for IVF or whether they're already in the process of that, do you continue with them on that journey all the way through, or how do you
Yes,
interact with them
exactly.
through that?
What I prefer doing is a 1-year coaching program.
Okay.
A VIP fertility and abundance coaching program. You have tools in a formal structure where you learn and have access to work with those with your present area of struggle, the part of your well-being, the health domain that you would love to shift that in. And then you can let that ripple out into your other domains of family, because your relationships could be affected. I've had people come into the office not being able to, they don't chat with and communicate with other siblings because they have their families, and that just brings them hurt.
Yes.
Instead of saying, they did it, that's going to be me too. Bless them. I'm so grateful that I have these nieces and nephews. So it empowers them. So the skills that they learn is not a one-off or a two-off. It's 12 months because it takes time to change beliefs and values, and having the structure to do that, the knowledge base with the structure, with the exercises and the components therein, as well as the laser focused coaching, because every week your paradigm is going to say, well, you've been fine up until now, you don't need to shift. And over time with the accountability, you can make those shifts so that they stay. It's like dieting. And if you're not in a support structure that's long enough to enable you to change your mindset as well as your way of life and the specific things that you do, you're not going to make those lasting changes. If you do it short term, how many people revert back and still have a bigger problem there afterwards? So you want to have that formal support structure so that you know that you're going to have that everlasting change and have that success. Because these principles, if you get pregnant in 3 months or 4 months, wonderful. Then we're going to work on the next phase of your dream building, what you're envisioning in a stronger, more focused process. Would you love to have the childbirth of your dreams as the next phase?
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're pregnant, or you're pregnant, let's move into that. And then the skill set that helps you navigate the typical challenges of childbirth, the sleeplessness of newborn baby at home, the dynamic shifts in your body that happen with childbirth, the energy factors. Breastfeeding is tiring.
Yes.
Anyone who's done that, and the challenges to do that. It's the most natural and best for a baby, but it's not physically easy to do when you don't have that support structure, when the majority of the people in your community, where that's, just you and your partner, an expanded community, maybe you don't have girlfriends, mothers, sibs, friends who've been able to do that. So your community of support is minimal.
Mm-hmm.
And I've experienced that as well. I mean, I heard from the lactation consultant. She sat on my bed next to me. I was home a week with my baby. And the struggle and, tapped me on that leg and said, there, dear. I know you know breast is best. I was in training in obstetrics and gynecology. And I was crying. She had watched me try and breastfeed in the struggle. But, if you have to bottle feed that baby, there, dear. I guess it's okay. And it's like, I self-diagnosed after the fact, yeast mastitis.
Mm.
I had all the classic signs but one. My baby didn't have to have thrush. And the book said 30% of babies won't have it.
Yeah.
But I had all the classic symptoms. I was telling her all this stuff. Where does this stuff get missed?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a year-long support structure, because that paradigms will come back into place. And what paradigms are they can be positive or negative. So they can be limiting or limitless. And the limiting ones are based on values and beliefs and your body. Your body recognizing at a cellular level that freeze, fight, and flight response.
Yes.
So that this is going back to when, there's a bear coming and I'm a caveman and I need to make sure that I'm safe. Or it's raining, and, I need to get warm. I need to make fire. So there's these changes of where we are in 2019 with what life is like.
Mm-hmm.
The bear is the bills. And for me being on call, post-call, when I stopped work, when my cell phone rang, I almost had post-traumatic, like, okay, who's it? What is it now?
Yeah.
It's getting to work. It's the, interactions with people at work if you have a difficult employee or difficult boss. It's, do you have a job? Do you have the skill set? That's when our nervous system turns on to that freeze, fight, and flight response.
Mm-hmm.
That characteristically was only life-saving in those measures. So now all these stresses are different.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, it can be anything and everything. Agoraphobic. You can't leave the house.
Yeah.
There's just their nervous system. There's nothing physically impairing them. With support, they can do more and be more and have more. And it's the same. I've just chosen to work with. It's just been a lifelong dropped in at grade 10 in a science class, biology class. It dropped in that obstetrics gynecology, not doctor.
Yeah.
Obstetrics and gynecology.
So this program that you put together, this
Mhm.
12-month journey,
Yes,
is all about personal empowerment.
Yes.
Finding the tools within yourself.
Exactly.
Working with the tools within yourself.
Yes.
To be the best version of yourself.
Exactly.
And the best parent
Exactly.
version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know from raising my own children, and you've got the grandparents and the parents, they always work from their fear factors and what didn't work. So then you feel like a failure because it's not working, and they can do it, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Which changes again your cellular body and how again you raise your children and everything else. So to be that life coach for that journey should be something that's offered to everybody, I believe.
It should be offered to everybody. Absolutely. It's where our focus is with our health care, which is not well care.
Mm-hmm.
And floating around Facebook is various times different posts. I have illness, but if it takes a community to raise a child, there's a we. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes wellness.
Yes.
So when you have the support and the accountability, and it's not that people surrounding you don't have great knowledge. They just have what they have.
Yes.
And if they're not interested in up-leveling more, they only have so much to give you. And you recognize that and be grateful for what they have.
Yeah.
And that's a factor that is missing, is that there's, well, okay, they can't help, so that's okay. That's all I can do. But be grateful that they do love you. Like that, just find that gratitude to up-level your frequency closer to that love vibration so you can receive more resources, because you never know when you shift that. They may be out at some function, organization, event. They meet up with somebody else. They are talking about that child, their daughter, their new grandbaby. And, oh, that's a new somebody who they could do. There's a link there.
Yes.
And there's a resource there. And you never know what you're going to find and where you're going to find it. So if you have that thought that, today could be the day that I'm going to learn something new. And I don't know what that is, but, I wake up grateful to be alive. I choose to be happy. And I'm going to learn something new. So you're welcoming all these things into your life instead of that constrictiveness.
Yeah.
It's the other analogy of, you can live a life of 90 years, 1 year, 90 times, or you can live a full 90-year life. Which would you choose?
Yes.
What would you love?
Yeah. And I think until that's brought to someone's awareness, they may not even be aware that they're living that same 1 year over and over and over and over again.
Well, what we have is that choice to decide in the morning. So you have the choice to decide. You're going to live your life the next year. You're going to create it. But are you going to create it by default?
Yes.
And go with the happenstance as things happen to you, and from that perspective? Or do you choose to design your own life and have whatever resources come in and welcome them so that you can up-level what life you're going to live and bring in everything that you want to have in your life?
That's very cool. So when you do this program with people,
yes.
So if they're going through IV and they have a diagnosis that they have Googled on the internet and found all the scare stories.
And more,
because that's exactly what comes up first. It's never the positive that comes up on Google when you search anything. It's always the negative and worst case scenario.
I would never recommend Dr. Google, but
Yeah, but that's people's first reaction.
Yes, we have access to that, so there's greatness in that.
Yeah, so when they come to you with their quote-unquote diagnosis, you're in a position to be able to clarify and put that into perspective.
Absolutely.
And shift it from a negative
as they perceive
it,
yes,
into a new positive course and direction.
Exactly. Because the content of your life is the perfect curriculum for your evolution. My mentor says that at every training. And it's true. So whatever experiences you have up to this point are important. I wouldn't change at all that I had such debilitating back pain. I can't even go back there very much without struggling to get the words out, because it's not who I am now.
Yes.
But there was a point where my 10-year-old had to help me dress for 6 months because I couldn't bend over and put on my pants. I wouldn't change not having that, because I would be somewhere different, still in medicine. I wouldn't have gleaned the insight from the yoga teacher training, the energy work, the spiritual work, and going on the Vipassanas to be a more enlightened person, to see and feel that I can link so much more successes for people. And though I am one person, and it may sound like big speak, but I feel like I'm here for this great purpose. I know my divine purpose.
Yes.
And now that I've found that, I can empower more people with that so that they can be more and do more. And it's not just the fertility challenges. I love to work with the couples. Prenatal classes is the next workshop that I also work with.
Yes.
There's a lack, knowing the medical information as I do. I hear from that we have to lower the C-section rate. Lowering may be great, but what would you truly love to do? What is the shift of that in an empowering sentence? And the shift of that in an empowering sentence is, we would love to raise the spontaneous vaginal birth rate.
Yeah.
We would love to have the maximum wellness factor for the children. Everything's perceived as a negative. To change that, and that's great to know your discontent of where you're going to start to make your shift. But until you put your vision, your mission, your purpose into a positive, then it's not going to come about. And I think that's why medicine hasn't been able to have the biggest shifts as we would love to see it, because they're not using empowering thought processes when they deliver that. They're still in a constructive state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so teaching prenatal classes to expectant moms and couples, letting them know what happens with their blood volume and, sessions on how that works and the changes in your body. And really, what do 90% of women who come to prenatal classes want to know about? How to navigate the childbirth process so they can have the spontaneous vaginal birth that they desire. So why don't we direct it that way?
Absolutely.
And have it covered.
So you follow the whole journey with a couple
I can
women.
follow the whole journey. So it depends on where they get up-leveled into their success, with or without IVF. Like, there's failed IVF for a reason, that there's 37% success in women up to 35, 37. That drops significantly to less than 10% when you're 40. And the statistic from the CDC that I saw recently was women who are 42 going through IVF have a 2% chance of having success in their having pregnancy. Well, we all know people who are in their 40s. I mean, do you have grandparents who had, your parents when they were in their 40s?
Yeah.
There wasn't the challenges the same, because the mindset of and the environment of the stress and what they perceived as that there's been so many shifts over years to decades. It doesn't need to be a long period of time. But we can shift that back. We have that point of power within ourselves, but we need to identify what have happened in our lives as events that we would list as struggle. Claim a gift. And if you can't claim a gift in that list, if you made a list, see there is something there for me to claim, and I'll leave it open to welcome that at a later time. And there's something here, there's this story, and I'm still stuck in that story, but let's see what we can do. So the structure will help them move through that. So there's specific exercises and trainings through the coaching program that enable them to shift that. Okay. And they shift it faster because they have the accountability, they have that support, they have somebody, who knows the other tools to draw them back, because we like to stick in our story.
Yes. Well, we wear it like a suit of armor. It's ours.
It's almost like a badge, as you said, and we have to move out of that to move into what it would be that we would love. And it's so uplifting that I can do that. I can do that.
So if someone comes to you and it's hormones that are completely all over the place,
yes,
you can coach them through bringing that back into balance and give them tools to bring that back into balance.
Yes. What I love as well with what I can do with my other education is ask them specific questions that they can bring them back to their healthcare provider, because I like to think about outside the box.
Yeah.
My successful medical practice that I didn't go back to, by the way, was because I realized I could do more with and for more women and couples without the stress on my body of being up at night and on call on the weekends and at night, so that I have my life-work balance for me. Yes. And I can share that with more people. Not that I didn't love attending deliveries and being there to do wonderful things with wonderful people. It just, the constraints of the whole aspect of that medical world for me was not filling my cup. But what I noticed in my medical practice was thinking outside of the box.
Yes. Yeah.
So I get to share those ideas with couples so that they can bring that back, discuss that with their doctors, and decide if that's something that will work for them.
So they're going away with real usable tools that then they can say to their doctor, this, and this, and the doctor's going, where did you get that information from?
Tools and examples and other resources. That's what I'm there to be. I'm there to be another resource.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So you offer this one-on-one?
I one-on-one,
two-on-one couples.
Yes. So I offer the complementary strategy sessions to see if what it is that they would love and if we are a good fit. And then I do offer the coaching 1 year fertility and abundance, because that's what we're drawing in.
Yes.
Coaching program can be done individually, privately, or it can be done in groups, because the structure portion, the online portion is there's an online training bits that they do every week, but the group coaching session, them and me can be them as a group or them individually and me.
Okay.
Some people love the benefit of having the mini mastermind of working with 2, 3, 4, 5 at most other people
Yeah.
as their laser coaching, focus coaching questions at the end of the group session. Even though that may be their question may not be specific to them, but they, as the person's saying their story and asking their question and getting help with that, it may relate to another aspect, or boom, it happens in their life
Yeah.
the week later or a month later, and they had the answer.
Yes.
And they remember the answer, so they know how to move and shift that without
right away.
without any ado. It's there. It's there for them. So there's the double aspect of whatever will work for them.
Yeah. Do you find in your experience of coaching people, and listening to the story this far, that it is comes back mostly to emotional blocks and mindsets and that kind of thing, or
99% of the time.
99% of
Despite
the
a
time?
diagnosis, there is something. And I firmly believe, and there's lots of information, and I knew this before, I knew this a decade before I closed my practice, was that there is emotional effect can be the cause of many medical conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just in the obstetrics and gynecology world, it's not just in the psychology, psychiatry world. Fibromyalgia, on and down, a variety of things. Because we can change our life if exorbitant stress, smoking, all sorts of other external things, poor diet can cause condition. Well health of all those things can cause changes in your well-being. But when you work with what's going on in their mind,
Mm-hmm.
because everything was a thought first and then it became a thing. So everything in this room that I see, from my blouse, the sweater, your glasses, to the technology, to everything in this room, someone thought of it first.
Yes.
And then it became a thing. So the condition in my body was a thought first. It may not be the same thought for every person.
Yes.
That created that condition. But it's there. And it's the same as the, you had alluded to it earlier, that over time, if you believe in past lives or not, whatever is in our energy body. And that makes up, when you're looking from an Ayurvedic perspective, there are 6 or 7 layers. And the physical body only comprises 3 of those.
Yeah.
So there's 4 more levels that we can work with the infinite, with the universe, you don't need to be God-fearing, God-based, I don't like the word, but brought up in a dogmatic type of religion of any denomination or structure. But do you believe in spirit or fate? Or if not, do you believe that there is an infinite, universal life force energy power out there?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're totally scientific, well, there you go. Science with quantum physics. How much more do you need? I don't need to say more for that aspect, because they may poo-poo this more, but I'm sorry, quantum physics is proving more and more information, quantumly, exponentially, as every year goes by.
Yeah,
so
all the time.
there's no question there that there's so much more.
Mm-hmm. So you've spoken a couple of times about Ayurvedic.
Yes.
So is that also something that you coach people on, that you offer?
I introduce it so that they can seek out what else they may need as resources, because people are not aware. When I was in grade 10 and I was in this biology class and learning about meiosis and mitosis, how cells divide and one cell becomes 2 cells exact the same, or meiosis, we have 4 cells, but they're actually half cells to be eggs, or boys, they'd be sperm. I just didn't know about Ayurvedic, osteopathy, naturopathic medicine, alternatives, supportive things. That was my exposure, and that's what dropped in. And whether that was divine or not, I would have taken another path if I had have known other things. I don't know, but there's so much out there that people are not aware of, or they're not opening themselves up to, because the doctor knows best. The old adage that the doctor knows best. The doctor knows only what medicine knows, and medicine doesn't know everything.
Yeah.
And my specific example that I would use in the office if patients came in with questions and I would say, I don't know the answer to that.
But you're a doctor.
Jaws would drop.
Yeah.
I've had husbands say, did you just say you don't know the answer?
Yeah.
And I would giggle and say, of course, medicine doesn't know everything. For example, when your wife goes into labor, what makes her go into labor? Oh, well, her water breaks. Well, that doesn't make her go into labor because there's women who go out, their water breaks, the membranes tear, the water leaks out, and they don't go into labor. So we have this little dance of what he thinks, and then, oh, it's the oxytocin. Yes, we can give you synthetic oxytocin. We can naturally stimulate your wife's own oxytocin through nipple stimulation, other means to help have better contractions. But what starts them? They scratch their head. Well, there's 3 theories. There's something in the mom, a shift that medicine hasn't got a test, a lab value to discern so we can predict it. Something in the baby that crosses the placenta to the mom's bloodstream that causes that process. Or is there something within the placenta? 3 theories. We don't know what exactly causes labor to start. Simple. Women have been having labor for how many years? Okay. So medicine doesn't know.
No.
And it's a simple explanation as to show that.
Yeah.
And I love that example. And I love the fact that when I go back to, I have my medical training as a link, as a bridge to help women bridge that gap of where they are to where they would love to be and help them navigate over that bridge with things for helping themselves and me as another resource to open up other paths across that bridge, or other bridges to take to cross that path to enable them to have that success.
And to have you as that coach throughout that process actually brings all of their power back to them.
Absolutely.
Instead of giving power to a doctor that, like you just mentioned, doesn't have all of the answers, and you sit on the sidelines simply waiting and waiting and waiting. And in the process of that, your power drains away all of the time and you become more discouraged, and which adds to the reason maybe why they're not getting pregnant.
Absolutely. Over the time while they're waiting, the waiting game is is an evil game of allowing fear to creep in stronger, the paradigms to become paramount. You're slowly secreting all this acid. There's not additional tests being done because you're in the queue, you're in the waiting game. And when you go in, it's no wonder that, and then it's like, I don't know how this is going to work. Is it going to hurt? There's other fears come up when oh, your time, you're the lucky one now. You're up.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
You don't have the training to cope with that. And it's not that you don't have the desire to be able to cope with that. We sink back to that unknown. And this gives them tools and skills to say, yep, okay, I'm up. I don't know what's going to happen today. I know that they're putting a baby in me today. I am so glad to be alive. I'm so great. Simple things. And it's like breastfeeding. It's simple things to be done repetitively to help you have that success. But it's the support structure. It's the formal support structure because it's missing in our day-to-day life in our world today.
Yeah.
We're so busy with so much else.
Yeah. So for everybody that's listening that is going through this process right now, or has a family member that's going through this process or about to go through this process, how do they get hold of you? How do they seek you out and either book an appointment for a consultation or come to some of the workshops that you have available?
Absolutely. The Facebook Sacred Spaces Studio is my business name.
Okay.
And I don't have a formal studio. I am my studio and I am sacred. And this space that my human body, that my perfect spiritual being is inhabiting in this space, this body, is sacred, and this is where we are making the magic happen. We're making that magic happen. We're bringing all that out.
Yeah.
On there, I do have the upcoming workshops posted. So I have a general workshop for any visioning. So if you have anything else health-related wise or otherwise that you'd love to do, I do have a workshop coming up the end of May 26th. It's a Sunday, 1 to 4 at the Ottawa Public Library in Centrepoint. If you know where the Meridian Theatre is, or Algonquin College, it's just across the street at the back of the Meridian Theatre there at the Ottawa Public Library, room 1B. So that's on my Facebook page. I do have the Overcoming Infertility Naturally workshop coming up at the June the 3rd. It's a Monday night. It's out in Manotick at the Manotick Natural Market. With that's the space that Darpan Alua has available for me from Monday night from 6 to 8. And again, a general vision workshop for anybody who has any challenge, situation, condition, circumstance that they would love to shift in their life in the 25th of June. So I have another one of those coming up. Otherwise, they can send me a message through Facebook. Mm-hmm. You don't need to attend a workshop to have a complimentary strategy session. And what I love the most about all this stuff is that I have that ability to share with you the information, all the things that I have learned, so that I can gift you freedom from within.
That is a powerful statement. So the additional question I'm going to ask you is there a cost charge for the workshop?
The workshops, the general one coming up the end of May, the General Vision Workshop, is free. And then the infertility workshop is going to be a $20 charge. It will be posted through Eventbrite, so it'll be easy to access your tickets. It's a 90-minute presentation, lots of time for questions at the end. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be interactive with some exercises to awaken some of these tools so you can see some shift before you leave. Journaling so you can learn to start how to create that vision, ability to ask questions to up-level that. A couple more exercises for awareness, mm-hmm. as well as some general information.
So if you send us that link,
absolutely,
we can put that link on Rebels Compass along with Karen's information so that you have access to all of that information. And I know through your journey and your experience so far, you have a lot more to share than just the fertility.
Yes, there are a couple other specific groups that are near and dear to my heart. So I'd love to come back and share more information focused on that, because that's another hour on its own.
Oh, absolutely. And I know I have women, friends in my life that are interested in finding more about menopause. And
oh, yes.
hormones.
Making menopause magnificent. That's coming up. I just had one of those in March, and I'll be posting one of those again for the fall. But
excellent.
Someone who has that challenge is more than welcome to contact me.
Okay.
But the workshops are coming up.
Okay. And I know you briefly mentioned off camera, if there are enough women that gather
absolutely.
In a space.
Absolutely.
So if any of you women have, clearly we all have women friends in our life that are at that point where they're either premenopausal or going through menopause, that you want to gather in your space, your home or a community hall or anything like that, then please contact Karen, because she's passionate, as you have seen through this video, of sharing this information to you and up-leveling you and bringing you to the best version of yourself and creating the life that you want to create through yourself. So contact her. I'm going to see myself about getting at least a dozen women together in my life.
They don't know all to be the same complaint. You could have a mishmash of health-related other conditions, a variety of things, because the visioning work that we do, they will vision their own specific. The tools are the same. So some of the examples that I speak to would be different, but when we're if it's a group of women who know each other, then it can be a little bit more intimate. So I can still work with that, and maybe a 15-minute longer presentation, so I can have a couple of examples for all of the specific questions, but it doesn't need to be all the same genre or of question. Yeah.
This is fantastic. Karen, I want to thank you immensely for being here today. It's been fantastic information, and certainly being able to share that this is available to you. This is available to everybody out there that is searching for that next answer. You may have tried fertility treatment before or gone to the doctor and gotten a diagnosis, and you're looking for that shift point of change. Well, maybe Karen is a person that you need to speak to bring that about for yourself, and to journey within yourself to find your own answers, to find your truth, and to birth the next experience for you. So on that note, I'm going to
Awesome.
say thank you very much to Vocal House Studios for being here for us today. Again, thank you to Karen. It's been my great pleasure to have you here today and to
My
share.
my honor to be here. Thank
And
you so
I
much. What
can't
a
wait for
gift.
you to come back again.
Thank you.
So have a fantastic Sunday. God bless to you all. Please post and share. If you have any questions, put the questions underneath. We will post Karen's information and share. Get this information out there so that people in your life or someone's life that you know can reach out to Karen and make that connection. Peace and have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.
Bye for now.